All right, we'll go ahead and get this called to order at 4:34. And could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Here.
Mayor White?
Here. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, Mr. Pinckney, can you read the items for discussion in closed session?
The council will be meeting in closed session. Item number 1, public employee discipline, dismissal, release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. Item number 2, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representative is Mayor Lloyd White or his designee, and the unrepresented employee is the interim city manager. Item number 3 is conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3, and there are 2 claims. The first one is a late claim by Cesar Munoz Delgado, and the second one is a claim of James Gregg. Item number 4 is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The city designated representatives are the interim city manager, Elizabeth Gibbs, and Administrative Services Director Kerry Mendoza, and the employee organization is the SEIU.
Oh, and before we go, Elizabeth, which order did we decide we're going to do this in?
We are going to do 3, 4, 1, 2 in that
Okay.
order. And if I may, Mayor, I will be recusing myself from item number 1 on the agenda, on the closed session agenda, because it involves an individual that my husband's company provided landscaping services to within the past 12 months. And then I will also be recusing myself on item number 2 because it does involve my contract.
So we're doing 3, 4, 1, 2, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. We'll go to closed session at 4:36. at 6:03. And Mr. Pinckney, can you report out of closed session, please?
Yes, the council met in closed session. Item number 1 was public employee discipline dismissal release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. There was reportable action taken in closed session on that item. So the first action that was taken was a motion to approve a mutual separation and settlement agreement with the former city manager Todd Parton. The first was made by Councilmember Fenn. The second was made by Mayor White, and the vote was Mayor White in favor of approving the agreement. Mayor Pro Tem Martinez in favor of approving the agreement. Councilmember Lara in favor, Councilmember Santos in favor, and Councilmember Fenn in favor. And that agreement is now a public record. The second item was the motion to approve a separation and settlement agreement with the Assistant City Manager, Christine Day. The first was made by Mayor White. The second was made by Councilmember Lara. The vote was Mayor White in favor of approving the separation agreement. Mayor Pro Tem Martinez in favor. Councilmember Lara in favor. Councilmember Santos in favor. And Councilmember Fenn in favor. On item number 2, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, agency designated representative, Mayor Lloyd White, or his designee, unrepresented employee, interim city manager. There was no reportable action taken on that item. Item number 3, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3. There were 2 claims, and there's no reportable action on the claim of James Gregg. There is reportable action on the late claim by Cesar Munoz Delgado. And the action was as follows. There was a motion ratifying denial of Mr. Delgado's application to file a late claim. The first was made by Councilmember Lara. The second was made by Councilmember Santos. And the vote was Mayor White in favor of the motion, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez in favor of the motion, Councilmember Santos in favor, Councilmember Fenn in favor, and Councilmember Lara in favor. And then there was also a motion to defend and indemnify the County of Riverside in the case pursuant to the terms of an MOU, an existing MOU between the city and the county. And the first was made by Councilmember Lara. The second was made by Mayor Pro Tem Martinez. And the vote was Mayor White in favor, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez in favor, Councilmember Lara in favor, Councilmember Santos in favor, and Councilmember Fenn in favor. As to item number 4, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, city designated representatives, interim city manager Elizabeth Gibbs, and administrative services director Kerry Mendoza, the employee organization, the SEIU. There was no reportable action on that item. And that concludes the report out from closed session.
Okay, thank you. So we're back in order, regular session. Do I need to call time again, or do you have that before? All right. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Here.
Mayor White?
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Finn, can you lead us in the Pledge of
Sure.
Allegiance?
Can everybody please stand and place your right hand over your heart? Ready to begin.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to make an adjustment to the agenda. I'd like to move item 13 in front of the public hearings unless anyone has an objection to that. Everyone okay with that? All right. And we have no announcements, recognitions, or proclamations. We'll move on to public comment period. Before I read this paragraph, do we have anyone wishing to speak?
Yes, sir. I have two
Okay.
at least.
This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Anyone in person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form at the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. And let's go ahead and start with the public comments.
First speaker is Kevin Walton. There's a button right at the bottom.
There we go. Testing. Mayor and City Council, Kevin Walton, San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency. I'm the Division 3 representative on the board, serving a part of Banning and Beaumont. I call it South Central. I don't know what the actual thing is with all the map stuff. Just here with you tonight and extending a best wishes to the council and the interim city manager.
Thank you. Next.
Next speaker is Roger Burke.
A little bit. Mayor and council members, I know you received an email that was originally supposed to have been read, but it got confused about some issues that we're having with Weaver's Mortuary that is directly behind, actually, my brother's house directly behind it. I'm right across the street. During the pandemic, they brought in 2 containerized refrigeration trucks to store human remains. We went along with it for that time, but the pandemic's over with. This seems like an economic decision. They decided to make more business. And frankly, we've tried to deal with the managements there, but it just doesn't work. They've removed one of them. We still got the other one. They're not run off electricity. They're run off of a generator, similar to what we'd have with a truck, a refrigerated truck, and it's very noisy. It runs all day. They have no screening. Bodies come in and out of there. You can see them when you walk through. They have containers. Looks like maybe formaldehyde might have been them. Just throw it out by the dumpster. Trash is blown from this place because they don't properly contain it. We had instructions on how to put together a crematorium box and things found in our yard, along with a lot of face masks. This was a CPU, a conditional use permit, when the building was originally put in. It was supposed to have a minimal amount of cremations. They've created quite a more. They're doing a lot more business. They can't be just putting a refrigerator truck back there and saying this is going to work. And that's what I've been told, that some of the staff members have told my brother that, well, they're going to screen it and they're going to put it on power. They can't put that one on electrical power that they've got there. They need to remove it. If they need to modify the building to fix it, to handle more business, then go back to the CUP process. I've gotten nowhere with your planning director. She says she can't find the original permit. They don't know where they're at. It was a matter of public record. So I don't want to harm the business. In the same token, we put up with smoke and black smoke coming out of there doing cremations and had to call the AQMD and stuff, and it smelled bad. And this is no way, with the summer coming up, we can't live like that. So I would appreciate if you could get staff to look at the CUP, see what's there, and redo this thing properly, have a public hearing, and get the problem solved. I really would appreciate it, and I know my brother would, and I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Ms. Gibbs, if, I know that staff has been looked into this and working on it. If you would be more prepared to bring back an informational item at the next council meeting, or did you have a brief summary you'd like to give tonight?
I do have a quick update. We have been in contact with AQMD, and we have sent code enforcement out to that site, and we are working with the owner of the site, but I can bring a more thorough detail.
Yeah, I think an informational item at the next meeting would be good.
Okay.
Unless you do believe it needs to be brought up to a public hearing.
Let me check into the background. This
Okay.
is the first I've heard of it, so.
Okay. Well, you've only been on the job how many days? Okay,
Who's counting?
all right. Who's counting, right? Do we have any other public comments?
I have no written comments. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion here or at the end of action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. Are there any items on the consent calendar that has public comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay, which item is that?
Item 4?
Okay, any others?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll pull forward and address that at the end after we approve the rest of the consent calendar. Is there any other items you guys would like questions on or pulled? All right, I'll take a motion for items 1 through 10 then.
Mr. Mayor, I approve that I move that we approve consent items 1 through 3 and 5 through 10.
I'll second.
And roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Okay, so on item 4, can we have the public comments?
David, I'm sorry, I can't read the last name. Hendricks?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Dave Hendricks. I'm the representative for Meritage Homes, who's the developer who the bonds and agreements are item number 4. And I wanted to come in and speak tonight because we've had a substantial amount of support from staff across the board to get to this point tonight, and we really appreciate all the hard work. We're looking forward to working with Elizabeth Gibbs now as we move forward with a number of other issues with the project. But more importantly, I just wanted to make certain that you're aware that staff has been extraordinarily cooperative and has been able to expedite, in many cases, needs that we've had to keep the project going. And it's been extremely important to the company. We have a major investment in this community, and we look forward to our continued relationship with the city. So with that, thank you. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, that's good to hear. And we'll take a motion on item 4, please.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item 4.
I'll second.
And roll call?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes, sorry, I was distracted. All right, so we'll move on to item number 13. Item 13 is to authorize the employment contract with interim city manager. Staff report, Kerry Mendoza, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Apologies for not being in chambers this evening. As you all know, on April 11th, you appointed Elizabeth Gibbs as our interim city manager. She's served in various roles throughout the city since 1996. Lastly, as our community services director, she holds a Bachelor of Arts degree and a master's degree from California Baptist University. The city attorney drafted the attached employment agreement, and council negotiated the terms and conditions of this employment agreement. The fiscal impact, I give you the full annual fiscal impact agreed to in that employment contract. However, since we're entering the last quarter, your fiscal impact for the remainder of fiscal year 22-23 is approximately $89,355 to be paid out of the general fund. Staff recommends you approve this employment agreement with Elizabeth Gibbs and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments on this?
I have no written requests, and
I have no callers on the line.
Okay. At this time, open this up for questions or comments from council. I do want to make a comment. I want to officially welcome you back. We have a little bit of a history together back in 2015, and you really, I think, held the city together very well in a very troubled time. So it wasn't that hard, I think, for any of us to bring you back in a different, I think, a more enjoyable time for you at this point. So with that, I would like to make the motion to approve the employment agreement with Elizabeth Gibbs and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. Mayor, if I might take a moment, my family is here. I'd like to introduce my father,
Oh, good.
Thomas Gibbs.
Okay. Absolutely.
Oh,
All new to me.
All right.
I may be out of order.
No, you're not.
I would just like to commend the council on making a good choice for my daughter, and I just want the council to know and my daughter to know I'm very proud of her. Thank you very much for the few words.
Thank you.
and then two of my daughters are here, and my grandson and my husband.
Okay.
Thank you, Dad.
You don't want to get a family picture?
Do you want a picture, Dad? Okay, come on.
Elizabeth, why don't you come up here? It'd probably be easier for you guys.
Let's see, Julio, can you scooch this way just a smidge so I get you in here? There we go. Okay, can I do one for the city? Hold on.
Yes, please.
Perfect.
No worries. Libby, you gonna say a few words?
Okay, we'll move back to item 11, the public hearing and first reading to approve an ordinance of the City of Beaumont regarding Assembly Bill 481, military specialized police equipment policy and use, and a staff report from Chief DeLeese, please. I will go ahead and open the public hearing right now at 6:21.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bear with me. We're going to spend a little time on the AB 41 and this staff report. And that was the intent of the legislature, was to walk our governing body through it and to hold a public hearing and to make this information known to the public. So on September 30th of 2021, the governor did sign Assembly Bill 481 into law. That becomes effective January 1st, 2022. This bill requires the Beaumont Police Department to create a military equipment use policy, which must be adopted by the city by May 1st, 2022. Due to the recent events in our nation, the public has asked state and local leaders to enact law enforcement reforms and set statewide standards for safe de-escalation techniques. And I just wanted to draw out interesting, and I know the mayor heard me speak to this at the Four Seasons not too long ago, but Penal Code 830.5 is where peace officers, or police officers, if you will, derive our authority. And the way that it defines us is actually as peace officers. And so our mission always first is peace, public peace, to keep the peace. Of course, when those circumstances shift, then our position shifts from peace to police. But always with the mindset that we are peace officers. AB 41, it does identify certain law enforcement equipment as military equipment and requires oversight from a governing body for purchase and usage of what the bill has deemed military equipment. And so for our police department, of course, you are our governing body, our city council. And the purpose of this request is to seek approval and support from the City Council in adopting the list of inventories, which I've attached, our specialized equipment, and therefore its use. And so the use policy establishes an ongoing standard and policy for safe de-escalation techniques and military equipment use application, which is attached as required by AB 41. I'm going to shift real quick. I just want to read a couple excerpts from our existing Beaumont Police Department policy, Policy 300. All these policies are on our website. The public can read each and every one of our policies. I have not redacted any of them. And so Policy 300, under use of force, it says this policy provides guidelines on the reasonable use of force. While there is no way to specify the exact amount or type of reasonable force to be applied in any situation, every member of this department is expected to use these guidelines to make such decisions in a professional, impartial, and reasonable manner. In addition to those methods, techniques, and tools set forth below, the guidelines for the reasonable application of force contained in this policy shall apply to all policies addressing the potential use of force, including but not limited to the control devices and techniques and our conducted energy devices. And then I'll skip down to one final excerpt from here. The use of force by law enforcement personnel is a matter of critical concern, both to the public and to the law enforcement community. Officers are involved on a daily basis in numerous and varied interactions, and when warranted, may use reasonable force in carrying out their duties. I'm going to highlight, I won't read the entire staff report. I'll start taking some things in chunks that I hope will answer many questions. But when you look at the list of identified military equipment, this is currently deployed by law enforcement agencies in this county, in Riverside County, as well as San Bernardino, San Diego, and Orange counties, and not to mention throughout the state. Why is that important? Well, I'll draw on the fact that, as we know, all roads can lead to Beaumont with the I-10, the SR-60, SR-79. And I'll highlight two national events, which was the ex-LAPD officer, Richard Dorner, who murdered a police officer in the city of Riverside and a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy. And that incident ended in Big Bear, which really is just a straight shot down through Oak Glen, down Beaumont, if it chose to come this route. The second was the December 2nd terrorist attack. And that took, your officers were at both incidents, not only in Big Bear for Dorner, because we've hired many deputies who knew the terrain well, but then also with San Bernardino, we're only 20 minutes away, and we responded to that incident as well. And so, just continuing, and importantly, the equipment that we're going to discuss, I've not purchased from the military. I've not purchased any military surplus equipment. This is equipment that this city council has provided its police force, either through our annual budget process or through individual agendized items for purchase. So the specialized police equipment is used only by your highly trained and experienced police officers. And then the list of itemized equipment is listed below as required by AB 481. And so with the City Council's partnership and approval of this, law enforcement, I apologize. I wanted to highlight one other thing. The inventory lists range from modernized tools, our aerial drones, to off-road vehicles, whose primary purpose is the preservation of human life. As you remember, as we have the Polaris and the drones and certain tools, we're responsible for the terrain in the city of Beaumont and the identification and recovery of missing persons. And the terrain here does vary greatly. And the weather and the depths, in a case specifically where we had a lost mountain biker that left during the day and the temperatures dropped into the 20s, and we were able to locate them in a stage of hypothermia, nearly turning fatal. So in the preservation of human life, when utilized in responding to critical incidents which often involve high-risk apprehension, search and rescue, fast responses to catastrophic events, we use them to reduce liability of physical injury to the public and department personnel, and allow for de-escalation tactics during high-risk encounters with armed violent suspects, which, as this council knows, we've highlighted a few for you recently. The tools, equipment, and resources can function as a resource multiplier in some cases to reduce manpower hours and is ultimately a cost savings to the city. Just a couple more excerpts here. So all your Riverside County law enforcement agencies, we have mutual aid and master mutual aid. We're responsible for ensuring the highest standard of public safety, protecting and serving members of the community, and apprehending criminal offenders. To help achieve and maintain the highest standard of public safety, law enforcement receives support from the local elected officials who are committed to funding operational needs, which includes the approval to purchase and finance necessary tools, protective gear, and specialized equipment for the purpose of helping protect and save lives and property. So with that, I'm going to highlight some of the inventory. We spoke about the drones, which we have 2 drones currently. We have the Matrice drone, which we use for many operations, apprehension, officer safety, crime scene scanning. We have a smaller drone that we put into residences on barricaded subjects or possibly 50 subjects that are armed. We can see them, we can see the weapon. It's not, and of course, none of these drones are armed, as you know, but I want to highlight that. Assault weapons defined under Penal Code 30510, that would include the Colt AR-15 patrol rifle. The command and control vehicles built or modified to facilitate the operational control and direction of public safety units. So your mobile command substation is considered military equipment under this bill. 40 millimeter projectile launchers. Currently we have 0. We have a proposal in the current budget that will go before you later this month to purchase 3. And I'll highlight why that's important. And then we have the beanbag launchers, and we are going to take those, once the 40 millimeters are approved and put into our toolbox, I will defunct the beanbag launchers because it's outdated, and even though we take every precaution that no lethal round would be inserted into it, it's still a shotgun and it's still capable of holding a lethal round, even though they're painted yellow, they're taped, they're initialed by the sergeant, mistakes can be made. And so with the 40 millimeter, there's not a lethal round that would go into the 40 millimeter. And it's also a large piece of rubber where the beanbag, even when the beanbag deploys, the casing of the beanbag still can impact. It can still impact the body. So we want to minimize that. Okay, and so let's see. I think we're good there. So the impact, the potential impact. Without approval, or with your approval, I should say, we will implement this policy and the city ordinance with minimal impact on the residents and the businesses for the city of Beaumont. However, without the approval, the effects, even though they're not fully known, we would not be able to have patrol rifles. We would not be able to have the MCS. We could no longer have the drones. And while perhaps this police department could survive without those tools, we would be hindered. But what's worse is if we called for mutual aid or Riverside County Sheriff's SWAT, and as you know, we don't maintain our own SWAT team, they would no longer be allowed in city jurisdictional limits to assist your officers. The other flip side, though, is I do have the right of first refusal on equipment over situations that they may want to bring in. So if they come in a manner that may be overbearing for the situation, let's say we have civil disobedience because for one reason or another outside, and we're outside City Hall, that may not be appropriate for MRAPs and Bearcats and certain functions. So I have the right to say, I don't want this equipment, but you can bring, your mounted posse and your deputies and some other things. So we still have say as the police chief, but I would rather have some say than to have no say and they just can't come. Because we could be overwhelmed pretty easily by flash mobs or certain hostile crowds. So the recommended action is to hold a public hearing, waive the full first reading and approve by title only an ordinance of the City of Beaumont for the adoption of a military equipment use policy, otherwise referred to herein as a specialized police equipment use policy pursuant to Assembly Bill 481 and Government Code 7070 for the Beaumont Police Department. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. Nicole, do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, any questions or comments by council? Mr. Penn?
Yes, Chief, thanks for sharing so far. I do have a question. Is the list that you've got as the potential types of equipment, is that subject to adjustment in the future, or do you have to come back to council to get an approval on that? And then just an off-the-wall question to add to that is what is done with seized equipment and so forth? And can that ever be added to inventory?
Great questions. Let me take the first. So you are the governing body. You will approve any future acquisition of equipment defined as military or specialized police use. For example, the 40 millimeter projectile launchers will come in the general budget here. I think next week is the first review, but I think it's for adoption in June. It is itemized 3 of these 40 millimeter launchers. Again, I will have a staff report separately if need be, but you can approve it through the regular budget process. Of course, I will ask that you do at that time, but I think you know where I'm at this time. But yes, you are right. You will approve all future equipment defined under this government code. As far as equipment that we seize, I destroy all firearms seized, if that's what you're referring to. So if we get a shotgun, a handgun, some sort of a rifle, I don't auction. I don't hold auctions, and I don't turn those weapons over to an auction company. We have them grinded down and smelted. Once they're legally disposed of by a court order.
And then that would include beyond just assault rifles, anything from, and when I think military, grenade launchers, handheld,
Right.
Explosives, that sort of stuff, that's all properly disposed as well, correct?
That's right. Certainly if the grenade launchers looks like it has something in it, then the sheriff's department bomb squad would dispose of it for us. We don't handle ordnance in that manner, but yes, to answer your question, I just want to be very precise with you.
No, that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Mr. Martinez?
Yeah. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
So I just want a couple of comments on why I really support this, and it's a twofold thing. So number one, I support it because it gives the necessary tools to our PD. We're a growing community with 50,000 plus, so we need our officers to have that equipment necessary to maintain our public safety. So I believe it's, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen, but we always need to be prepared. So why shortchange our officers and put them in jeopardy and our citizens in jeopardy? So I ultimately, number one, support it for that reason. But I also support it because the way the policy is written, you have a mindset of ensuring the public that we're going to safeguard those civil liberties and civil rights of our residents as well, while maintaining the public safety as well. And let me just point out a few excerpts from your policy in which give me that reason why I support it so much. So you say in the staff report that there's an ongoing standard and policy for safety escalation. So we always know that that's one of our mindsets, and thank you, Chief, for having that from the top down, is promoting de-escalation techniques and training for our officers. I think that's essential, especially in our society and how that's, kind of deteriorating, in my opinion. But a couple of other things I just want to point out. And again, I'm trying to show why I'm comfortable with this ordinance and the policy, and given the way it's written. Also, you point out that the equipment used should give strong consideration to the public's welfare, safety, civil rights, and civil liberties. The use and acquisition policy is developed with the consideration of the public's concerns about safety, but civil rights and the public's welfare. You go on other points to point out about, in addition, so the training, including any course required by the Commission on Peace Officers, must be completed by the officers, and it is allowing that each specific type of equipment to ensure the full protection of the public's welfare, safety, civil rights, and civil liberties. So again, I find throughout the policy and information here that we keep that central mindset that no matter what public safety that we're going for, we're always keeping in mind that civil liberty and civil rights are considered. And I thank you for that, because I believe that a lot of our residents are looking for that mindset. And that balance between that, but also protecting our public, is very critical. So I appreciate your mindset on that, and I agree with the way it's written, and I'll support that. So thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Anyone else? We're good? Okay. So I'll entertain I entertain a motion.
We do need to close the public hearing if you.
I'll close the public hearing at 6:39.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to waive the first.
This is on an item not on the agenda. So after this, I was going to ask you if you wanted to reopen that section. This is not in regards to this portion.
Sure,
Correct?
not a
I'm
problem.
not sure
We'll
if
do
you
that.
asked for public comment. Yeah.
Okay.
So waive the full first reading and approved by title only an ordinance of the city of Beaumont for the adoption of the military equipment use policy, otherwise referred to herein as Specialized Police Equipment Use Policy pursuant to Assembly Bill 481 and Government Code 7070 for Beaumont Police Department.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
So I'll go ahead and reopen the public comment section of the items not on the agenda. Uh-oh.
Thank you. Lynette Smilak, 1536 Williamson Park in the Four Seasons. Oh, much better. I have a concern, as among other residents of the Four Seasons, as well as Sun Lakes. The Banning Point warehouse that is slated for across the main entrance from Sun Lakes. I have been involved in going to the Planning Commission and the council meetings. The engineers that did the traffic study for the project, because most of us are very concerned about the traffic on Highland Springs, particularly those of us that are south of the freeway going north. You can widen the freeway all you want, but if you can't get on it, what use is it, widening it? The engineers said that the lights on Highland Springs belong to Beaumont, okay? We are very concerned about the fire department, other first responders, ambulances, for example. In the case of a natural disaster, how would we leave? I witnessed an ambulance having a terrible time getting through. What goes on in one city can either negatively or positively affect the residents of another city. So I urge the Council of Beaumont to encourage the city of Banning not to put this warehouse, build this warehouse. I understand the job aspect of it, but aren't there other places that are not across from senior living communities and assisted living community? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 12. Public hearing fiscal year 22-23, 24-25, short-range transit plan final draft. Staff report from Kerry Mendoza.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Before you, you have our public hearing, or do we need to open the public hearing, Nicole?
We can go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:44.
Sorry, thank you. You have before you the fiscal year 22-23, 24-25 short-range transit plan. As you know, we are annually required to submit this plan to the Riverside County Transportation Commission. On April 5th, you saw the first draft in our table for presentation. Since that draft, we did receive an additional $40,000 that's been added from the low carbon transportation program for Beaumont to administer for the city of Banning. Staff does not believe that the administrative fees or the overhead costs can be charged to the city of Banning or charged out of the grant. However, we have reached out for an official opinion from the Department of Transportation. We do not have that official opinion yet. Once I do have that, we will be bringing an MOU forward to you probably later in May after Banning has adopted the MOU and we get the answers that council's requested regarding the administrative overhead fee. So at that meeting, council also asked a specific question about fare box recovery in 2019. That was one of your higher years of ridership. And we pulled the audited fare box numbers and it was shown to be 11.68 that year. So I wanted to report back on that. Since your presentation on April 5th, we have also presented to the RCTC TAC Committee. That was on April 11th. It was a brief presentation about Table 4 and what the highlights are, what the City of Beaumont plans to highlight in the next fiscal year. So highlights to that program include obviously operations and capital budget of just over $5 million. A breakdown of the funding, the totals and the funding are obviously identified in your staff report. Staff's recommending we run free fare promotions in partnership with Banning this year, that we increase our advertising, our passenger outreach, our community involvement, our overall visibility. Something new we'd like to conduct, and it's proposed in here, and it was received well from RCTC, as a microtransit feasibility analysis. Mr. Story explained a little bit about that to you on the 5th. And it's just a little bit of enhancement, working more like a Uber or a rideshare or those types of, what would that look like in our community and what could that bring to our residents? Looking at enhancing, we have some software enhancements that we're getting ready to kick off to enhance our bus prediction, like what time the bus will arrive. We have the tracking capabilities now, but we're going to try to enhance that. We'd like to reinstate our travel training. We actually took a group of folks down to LA today. As a matter of fact, we kicked it off today. Eileen from the Senior Center, as well as Elisa Mendoza, our transit manager, went with a group of about 10 of our seniors and took them down to LA and gave them a nice transit experience. So we'll be anxious to get the feedback on that. As you're aware, also, I think Mr. Story explained, we do have a fee waiver for next year. And as staff understands it and RCTC is explaining it, I know there's a concern about our population and the anticipated 20% fare box. But it is our understanding that they are working towards stair-stepping us into that fare box, if you will. And that right now we're projected that maybe it hopefully won't be 20, maybe it'll be between 17 and 18. So the next steps in the process are obviously to conduct the public hearing, close the public hearing. RCTC requires that this first draft is due to them by April 22nd. They'll provide any feedback back to the city on any recommended changes or alterations to the plan. And the final draft is due May 6th. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments, please?
I have no written comments. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:48, and I'll open it up to comments or questions from council. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt the plan with any recommended changes.
All right. Second. And roll call, please. We had no recommended changes, correct? Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. And we'll go to item number 14, fiscal year 2021 single audit report, staff report by Jennifer Eustachian.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have for you this evening is the fiscal year 2021 single audit report. And a single audit is required of all public entities that expend more than $750,000 in federal funds. The single audit reviews the expenditures of the federal funds and evaluates the internal controls of the public entity that are designed to ensure expenditures are handled appropriately and in compliance with both city policies within internal control standards. And this audit was performed by Rogers, Anderson, Melody, and Scott. They are the same auditors who issued the city's annual comprehensive financial report in January. And this report does provide the results of internal control testing and the findings from that process. Those findings were highlighted for the Finance and Audit Committee January 10th, 2022, as a part of a draft report of internal control over financial reporting, and was also presented to City Council on January 18th as a part of the annual comprehensive financial report. There were three internal control findings. Two of those findings have been addressed and processes have been implemented and completed. There is one open finding, and that is in the process, which is your overhead cost allocation. The city has hired a consultant who is currently working on that, and we expect to have a presentation to council on that finding by July of this fiscal year. With that, that's my report, and I am available for any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, at that, do we have any comments or questions by council? Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, thank you. Jennifer, remind me, did we have any comments from the Finance and Audit Committee concerning this?
There was a discussion about the findings, but they were just looking at the processes that we have put in place, and then also looking and asking when the overhead cost allocation would be completed.
Okay, and then on the note here about the older findings from fiscal year 2018, 19, 20, was that the same finding that was being fixed during those 3 fiscal years, or were those 3 separate findings?
The overhead cost allocation is a carryover finding from those prior years.
Okay, and
All other findings prior have been completed.
is that the one we're working on now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and our prediction is that should be fixed by the new fiscal year?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's all. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll take a motion at this time for item number 14.
Mayor, make a motion to receive and file the report.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Yes.
Mayor White.
Yes, item 15, financial training presentation, staff report, Jennifer Eustachian.
Yes, thank you again. The Finance and Audit Committee was tasked with creating a financial training program for the general public. A subcommittee was established to address this task, and they created a PowerPoint that was then taken back to the Finance and Audit Committee, who suggested that there be audio along with the PowerPoint. And so that has been completed and reviewed by the Finance and Audit Committee, who have recommended that this come to council for their review. They're looking for either modifications to this training or that council approve this training and post on the city website. If council would like me to, I can go ahead and share my screen and bring up the financial training.
How long is it?
It's about 3 minutes, I believe.
Yes, let's go ahead and view it.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Introduction to local.
Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Local Government Finance for the City of Beaumont. Why does the City of Beaumont collect taxes and fees to provide exceptional public services like beautiful parks, clean water, and high-quality roads? Who pays these taxes and fees? Residents and visitors will pay permit and utility fees, property taxes, sales taxes, and vehicle license fees. Businesses will pay through business licenses and permits, and the city receives grants from various sources for operations and capital improvements. Where does the money go? When the money is collected, it goes to 3 operating funds primarily. The first one is the general fund, and this is the primary operating fund for the city and funds core services like public safety. The wastewater fund will fund the wastewater system for the city of Beaumont, and the transit fund will fund the transit system for the city of Beaumont. You also have special revenue funds. The largest portion of these special revenue funds are CFD funds. And what is a CFD fund? A CFD fund establishes a Melrose Community Facilities District, also known as a CFD, which allows for financing of public improvements and services. And finally, you have capital project funds. And these funds are used to receive and track funds received from a variety of sources that are used to directly support the city's infrastructure and capital improvement projects.
How is the city held accountable? Well, there's audits. These are performed from an independent outside firm, not city staff, certified public accountants who follow professional standards. What do audits do? Well, they occur every year, examine financial records, review agreements and contracts, test internal controls and processes, interview leadership and staff. What are the possible opinions the city can get from the audit? Unqualified, clean; qualified, some problems; adverse, significant problems; disclaimer, no opinion, big problems. The city of Beaumont has an unqualified, clean opinion. What is provided in the financial statements? Management discussion analysis provides financial highlights and overview of the financial statements. Government-wide financial statements provide readers with a broad overview of the city's finances in a manner similar to a private sector business. Fund-specific financial statements report information about groupings of related accounts which are used to maintain control over resources that have been segregated for specific activities or objectives. Required supplemental information includes schedules required to be presented showing information related to the city's pension plan, and a budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund and the city's major special revenue funds. Supplementary information includes the combining statements and schedules of the non-major governmental funds, internal service funds, and agency funds. What are notes to the financial statements? Well, they're the most valuable section to the general public. Additional information that is essential to a full understanding of the data provided in the government-wide and fund financial statements. What is an audit finding? A finding identifies an area where the city needs to improve. This report tracks progress toward fixing prior year findings and identifies any new ones. Where can I find the city's most recent audits? Well, you can find it on the city website under Audits and Reports. Who do I contact if I have further questions? You may call the City of Beaumont Finance Department at 951-572-3236. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Any questions or public comments first?
Is local government.
Sorry.
Welcome to.
Apologies.
I have no written requests. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay. Any comments or questions by council? Go ahead, Mr. Lara.
I just had a couple, Mayor, and these may or may not be worthy of making any changes. It identifies, I think, on slide 2, clean water. I didn't know if that may be better replaced by maybe infrastructure such as water, sewer, and electric. I didn't want there to be any confusion as far as clean water, which is something that we don't typically do or don't do. It's just a thought. The other thought I had was under what does an audit do, potentially adding in there the financial statement notes and audit findings, because those are also part of the audit. That way you see that, and then they're explained in more detail further on in the next few slides. And those were the only, I really like the idea. I like the fact that it's a brief explanation, and it helps to explain kind of what we do or what our responsibilities are. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, I just want to comment, thank you, Mayor, that I'm really proud that it's citizen initiative driven. Mr. Vanderpool was one of the members on our finance committee, and I believe he helped develop that, and thank you, Ms. Eustachian, for your voice and input, I'm sure. But I'm really proud of that committee. I miss being on it, but it really gives them some ownership that they're getting involved with that. And it's a good platform, it's a good stepping tool. We can always look forward and saying, okay, it's nice and brief and it gives some general, then perhaps later we can come on and maybe do one just on a brief CFD if they want to know more about that and have some separate things come up later. But I like how it's kind of general and gives everybody a little bit of a background, so I appreciate that.
So I agree with both these, both Mr. Lara and Mr. Martinez. I think the concept of clean water could be changed to either recycled water or sewer services, things like that. And I do like the suggestion of the addition of the additional notes. And I would like to see a 4 to 5 minute brief on a CFD. I think that'd be a cool next step. So. Are those modifications you think are reasonable?
Yeah, I could take that and report that to the Finance Committee and ask that we go ahead and make those changes.
Okay, and would you think the folks involved with that, because I do like it, it's a first step, and I think it's a good way to get our message across, and we can do more of that. So I do appreciate that. Thank you. Do we need a motion? We've given you direction on modifications at this point, right?
Right.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 16. Ratification of purchase order approval for emergency repair costs to Upper Oak Valley Lift Station pump repair payable to Xylem Water Solutions USA, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $44,398.64. And staff report, Jennifer Eustachian.
Yes, thank you. During regular status and health checks of the sewer collection system, city staff became aware of impeding pump failure at the Upper Oak Lift Station located near Oak Valley Parkway. The pump was pulled, inspected, and determined to be repairable. Current cost to purchase a new pump is estimated at $77,000, and the cost to rebuild and repair was quoted to be $40,362.40. This purchase order for repair was initiated on an emergency basis due to the lack of full pump redundancy and the need to remedy the problem in a timely manner. This report seeks City Council ratification of a purchase order for the cost of emergency repairs to the Upper Oak Valley Lift Station at the projected cost of $40,362.40, plus an additional 10% contingency amount for anticipated freight and shipping charges. And these repairs are funded using equipment funds within the wastewater treatment plant budget. And I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on this one?
I have no written requests. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Any comments from council? Questions?
I just have a quick
Sure,
question.
Mr. Finn.
Is the location of this pump, is it right across the street from Fallen Heroes Park? Is that the location? Or am I thinking Beaumont, Cherry Valley stuff?
And we have, let's see, maybe we can have Jeff Hart answer that question for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. So this is for that Mesa Lift Station, which is directly across from Olivewood on Potrero.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lara.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, you know what? Excuse me, sorry, Councilman Member. It is on Upper Oak Valley. I was looking at the wrong item. So it's at Upper Oak Valley, which is near adjacent to the maintenance yard for Morongo Maintenance Yard, maybe a half mile or so west of the on Oak Valley at the intersection of west of Oak Valley and Potrero. It is located on Oak Valley.
Okay, so the maintenance yard for the golf course, that's the one that's near Brookside Elementary School?
No.
Okay.
This is like Fairway Canyon area.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hart, just a quick question. With the going the route of the rebuild, did we get any type of warranty with that?
For the purchase? Typically, they are 1 year, but I would have to confirm with either Paxton or Kevin Lee if he's available. Typically, it's at least a minimum 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Mr. Santos.
thank you. That's the questions I have on this. I will add on this invoice, just reviewing right now. And if this is an emergency, how come the date in here is February 23rd, 2022? Is it that really urgent or emergency?
The pot's been delivered. It's still the billing and the the charges that are going to come in associated with it.
Okay. And then the next I have on here is the, if we're not sure on the warranty, I mean, I will look for the products, the warranty on that, is it cover 1 year or 2 years, and also the labor on this. My next, item on this one here is the, how long will it take to get a brand new one? Because, what's the life expectancy on the repair or, repair products versus a brand new one on this? I'd just like, to find out on that because right now it's almost 2 months now before we could approve this on this product. I mean, if we have a brand new one, maybe the life expectancy of this pump will be last longer and also a better warranty. That's my main concern on this pump.
Yeah, so we can certainly look into the warranty for the labor provided for you, absolutely. So, and as these go in and they're assessed for repairs, they make a determination on expected longevity for remaining life in the pump. And so all those come into consideration when these get put back into place. So if we have enough foresight, can we budget for this? Can we put this in a capital program? What's the best means of proceeding? So those things are evaluated, but at the time, obviously, is in order to minimize any sort of disruption of service, it was deemed emergency repair.
Very good.
There is a long, very, very long lead item on pumps right now. So we are seeing that on a lot of new development as well. It's not uncommon to a lot of things you're seeing in the construction industry, but there are There are several pumps that you are fortunate to get them before 6 to 9 months.
I agree with you on that. That's true.
Mayor,
Thank you.
if I might, the parts do carry a 12-month warranty.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Hart, not to belabor the point, but I want to understand the timing on this. So there was an impeding pump failure, and we pulled it and determined that it was repairable. But are we waiting, and we've ordered, we've completed the purchase order, you're getting ratification from that, from us for that. So are the parts on their way, and that's why there's a long turnaround time?
The ratification is because the service of the pump repair has been provided. The invoice is not.
Okay, so in other words, the pump is not already fixed and repaired, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
It is fixed and repaired. Okay,
And
because
if I may, Mayor, normally they have to issue a PO so that they can order the part and purchase it. So that is what this request is for the approval of that purchase order.
Okay, and the reason I understand that, and we've had these before, the reason I'm asking all these questions is there's projected cost of $40,000 plus an additional 10% contingency. But if we've already received the product, then why would we not know what the contingency amount is? Why are we not given a direct, exact amount here?
Yeah, and that's for the freight, which is to my understanding, at least to this date, it has not yet been provided, and it typically runs on order of about 10% of what the value of this repair was.
Okay, so we haven't been charged for the freight yet, is what you're saying? Right. But the pump is fixed and we're good to go, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up, I appreciate that. At this point, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we ratify the approval of the purchase order for emergency repairs completed and payable to Xylem Water Solutions USA, Inc. for an amount of $40,362.40 plus an additional 10% contingency for additional freight and shipping charges.
I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 17, approve the purchase of a superior playground structure and shade sail structure in the amount not to exceed $42,100.35 from Craftsman Commercial Playground and Water Parks. Staff report from Mr. Doug Story.
Thank you for letting me be here tonight to give you this staff report. This is exciting because it's also an opportunity to update you on some of the things that are happening at Rangel Park. The staff report is for the purchase of the playground equipment, which is in the amount of $42,135. One of the reasons we are going with this particular brand and model is because of availability, like a lot of things right now, and whether it be pumps or vehicles or whatever, we are finding that it's difficult to find things that can come in a reasonable amount of time. And so we are excited that this manufacturer has this available for us, and it fits all the dimensions and the things that we want to do here. It's on page 1004 of your staff report if you guys want to take a look at the picture, or I have it up on the screen maybe. There you go. And you can see what it's going to look like. There's been a lot of work going on at Rangel Park, and so I wanted to take this opportunity just to tell you a few of the things that are going on over there at the park. We have done the fence repair for the ball field. We have done the planing and leveling and scraping of the field. We are installing the new irrigation right now, and we will be putting in new valve boxes and sprinklers. The sod should be being laid, we expect the first or second week of May. And then it'll be nice and fluffy and ready to go for baseball and softball tournaments by July. So I know that's a big date for some of our folks. So we'll make sure we hit that. We have some other items that are going to be coming to you in the next couple of weeks as we finalize those specs and designs. So there's some electrical boxes and some other things that are going to be over in your guys' approval authority, so we will be bringing those before you shortly. But things are moving along. We've put together a special team of in-house guys that are doing a lot of work over there every day. So things are continuing to move, and we're excited to see that part come along pretty quickly. So this particular staff report is specifically for the playground and then also a shade cover that's going to go over one of the picnic benches in the park as well. So this company can provide those for us in a very quick turnaround, and it meets all of our qualifications and specifications for what we want to put in that park. So that's what I have for you tonight. If you have any questions about Rango, I'd love to answer them at this time too.
Thank you. Any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Questions or comments from council?
Quick question.
Sure, Mr. Martinez.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I had a strange question from a resident, wanted to know where the Valdivia sign is. So they're very protective and they want to make sure it's being...
We have that in very, very safekeeping right now. We did remove that sign when we disconnected some of the conduit and some of the things off of the fence. We had to take that sign down. That sign is in existence. It is being preserved. It is safe. It is good. And we have a new scoreboard that's going to be coming. That sign will go back up in the park, and we're actually thinking of relocating it into a more prominent location at the ball field. But we do have it intact, and it is being guarded heavily.
And I knew you would, but I wanted to ask, and so
no, I appreciate it.
Fulfilled my
Of
commitment,
course.
so thank you. That's all, Mayor.
With no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Story, thank you for the update, and with that, I will make a motion to approve the purchase of a Superior Playground structure and a shade sail structure in the amount not to exceed $100.35 from Craftsman Commercial Playground and Water Parks, Inc.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item number 18. Second amendment to the professional services agreement for the PLC upgrade project with SKM Engineering LLC in an amount not to exceed $21,777. And we'll have a staff report from Mr. Hart, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So this will be the first of two items regarding the PLC upgrade project. This item is for construction design support, and the immediately following item is for a change order for the construction contractor. Back in December of 2020, Council approved the First Amendment to SKM's contract professional services agreement that allowed them to provide construction support for the PLC upgrade project. As part of the project, each lift station was upgraded to have cellular as a primary communication with the wastewater treatment plant. City entered into a contract with Verizon to provide a secure wireless private internet protocol, a PIP. Verizon was unable to establish the PIP within the requested time frame, and subsequently the city implemented an interim wireless service to maintain functionality. The PIP network was intended to provide increased security and is the preferred network. SKM has now provided a cost to switch the lift station sites to the PIP network, which is now available and includes hardware and software reconfiguration. The cost of the service amendment is $21,777 to implement not only the PIP network, but to provide continued construction support for the PLC project as well. Within your agenda packet, you'll see a few tables. One is the overall project funding summary showing the original budget amount and remaining budget, but we've also inserted a table that will show the remaining budget, and then what would be the remaining budget with the approval of this amendment number 2. And with that, it's recommended that council approve the second amendment to the professional services agreement for the PLC project in amount not with SKM Engineering in an amount not to exceed $21,777. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Kerry, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
So, Mr. Hart, I have a question for you. Item 18 and 19, do you want to take them in one shot here? I mean, are they related other than the fact that they're on the same project?
Yeah, I mean, it is the same project, and I'm happy to do a brief overview of item 19 if you prefer.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So item 19 is for change order number 3 for Southern Contracting Company, which is a construction contractor we utilize for the PLC project. Construction commenced on this project back in March of 2021, and the original scope was completed in late February this year. During the construction, the contractor and staff identified several of non-functional or very limited functional components at each lift station. These included low-level bypass switches, hydro rangers, which is a monitoring device to measure the effluent leaving the site. Gas monitor at Mesa lift station is inoperable, which monitors the potential presence of hazardous gases, and then e-stop contacts at 4 of these sites, which allows for a manual override to shut down in case of an emergency. Southern Contracting provided a cost to perform this as change order number 3. To remedy these situations and as change order 3 in an amount of $71,531. And this amount exceeds the remaining contingency of the project, but it does not exceed the available budget for this project. And so table 1 in this report as well will show you the project summary and the remaining budget. And then we've also inserted the same table into this project, which would show you the current remaining budget and the remaining budget after the approval of amendment number 2 for SKM, and then the approval of change order number 3 for Southern Contracting. And so the recommendation for this item is to approve change order number 3 for the PLC project with Southern Contracting Company in an amount not to exceed $71,531.
Okay, and do we have any public comments on 19?
No written comments. Carrie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Mr. Hart, I have another question. I understand what this project is because there's a good explanation here, but what does PLC stand for? I can't figure out what that stands for. Does anyone
Sorry,
else
we
know?
could have defined that. It's programmable logic controller.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'll open it up to questions or comments from council for either item. I knew it was exciting stuff. So move on to a motion. If anyone would like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve item number 18 to approve the second amendment to the professional service agreement for the PLC upgrade project with SKM Engineering LLC, an amount not to exceed $21,777, and also to approve item number 19, the change order number 3 for the PLC upgrade project with Southern Contracting Company, and the amount not to exceed $71,531.
I'll second both items.
And roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 20, approval of city attorney invoices for the month of March.
And because this item involves my law firm, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, so item 20 is approval of city attorney invoices for month of March. Do we have any questions or comments? First of all, any public comments on this item?
No written requests. Carrie, do you have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
And questions or comments by council? At that time, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $150,902.85.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. And we'll move on to economic development update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We met earlier, what was it, last week? It seems like a while ago, but it was just last Wednesday. On April the 13th, the Economic Development Committee met, and we furthered the discussion on the downtown businesses and the downtown vision. Received input from at least one of the local landowners and business owners within the city on some permitting processes. So that'll be on a future agenda item at the EDC in order to review the permitting or business license process. And then scheduled for next meeting, which will be held on May 11th, The Economic Development Committee is going to be discussing parking options within the downtown area. So furtherance of the discussion of the parking strategies that the planning department conducted about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And we're hoping to get our educators to discuss their apprenticeship program. So that would be Beaumont Unified School District as well as Mount San Jacinto Community College. So if they're able, we're going to have a presentation from them on that as well. And then also on May 11th, we're going to be bringing forward the website design contract for initial review, or the proposal to the EDC for the economic development website. And that concludes my report. I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have public comments on those items, do we? Public comments on that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Mayor, can I add one comment? One of the items that came up, and Kyle, I'm sorry if you reviewed this, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. The planning packet review that was brought up at the Economic Development Committee by Mr. Tom Daniels, we are working on that, and we will be taking that back to the Economic Development Committee, and then ultimately, if you want, we can bring it back to you.
Thank you. And that, just to summarize that was looking at ways to streamline the business license process for tenants as opposed to a full building, correct?
Correct, right.
Okay. We also, in that meeting, we discussed, we got a presentation, or at least a summary from Mr. Warsinski regarding the May 22nd, 24 ICSE conference for commercial office developers. And we discussed in that meeting whether or not the city of Beaumont should be represented there. Did you make any decisions on that? Is that something that we still have time to see if we need to, if it makes sense to send representatives to that?
I have not heard back that any of the committee members want to attend. We are sending Kyle, and I believe Miss Christine Taylor is also going to attend. Kerry is unable to because of prior conflict.
Okay, and I don't think anyone else up here would want to go since it's in Las Vegas, right? Mr. Santos? No? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Just looking out for you. I did skip over legislative updates and discussions. Sorry about that. So we'll move on to that item, or back to that item.
Mayor, if I may, just really quickly back on the economic development, I do want to say, I think there's some interest that was gained from the meeting that Kyle had put on, and Kyle and Kerry had put on, because we actually had 2 business owners attend our last meeting, which I thought showed some promise. So, and they actually had input. So that's all I want to say, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I thought maybe you'd had enough of us already after 3 or 4 months of talking about what's going on in the legislature. I know the chief has some things he would like to follow up with you guys on tonight, so I'm going to give you just a brief update on a couple of things. I was part of the SCAG legislative update meeting today, and one of the bills that they brought up and took a position of support, although not unanimously by any stretch, is SB 1410. And this is a bill that I don't think we've talked much about here, but it is moving through committees. And essentially, back in 2019, the legislature changed the CEQA requirements for transportation analysis from level of service, which we previously had, to VMT, vehicle miles traveled. And I think there are some, shockingly, unintended consequences that have come out of the legislative process in that bill that is affecting fees that some cities are exacting on housing developments in order to offset the VMT impacts. And it's to the tune of what was mentioned today, up to, I think, like $40,000 a unit to offset those VMT impacts. And so obviously this has come to the legislature and not intended to to happen this way, and the state's being very pro-housing right now, so they're saying this is maybe a problem that would impact housing development even more than all of the other hurdles that housing developers have to go through and fees they have to pay. So SB 1410 has been introduced in order to reevaluate or provide some alternative metrics for assessing traffic impacts. And so I know it's just really interesting. I'll say that. So we are looking still at vehicle miles traveled, but also maybe introducing some other metrics such as vehicle miles traveled per capita, or not just automobile trips generated, but also a trip generation rate. So I think they're trying to look at the different components of how vehicle trips are generated and the different components or inputs that are put into the model, and how those things can be looked at or played with in order to sort of minimize or reduce the opportunity for cities to exact extensive fees or maybe other mitigation measures, I think could also at some point be a concern. So another possible discussion is then to just have projects from the CEQA standpoint focus on reducing greenhouse gas only and the emissions component as opposed to the traffic component. So anyway, we are, there was some pretty robust debate on the SCAG committee today. It was not a unanimous motion to support, but it was enough to garner the support anyway. But a lot of the cities out this way, Mayor Robertson from Rialto was on and spoke, and the representative from Colton was on and spoke, and sort of emphasize the impacts that something like this has on the more suburban communities as opposed to the urban environment. So I will continue to watch this and bring back some updates. It is scheduled for a hearing at the Senate Environmental Committee on April 27th. So the council meeting in May, we should have an update on where this bill will be. And then
Before you move on, I have
yes,
a quick
sir.
question on
Okay.
this one. The fees on the housing, you said up to about 40,000 a year. Who's assessing those fees? The cities or?
So the cities are looking at what the impacts are from the VMT and what it would take to offset those impacts. And so essentially turning that into a dollar amount, because, right, if a city has not retained a level of service, like the city of Beaumont retained level of service as well in our general plan, not all cities have retained that, and so they're having to look at other measures for how to reduce or how to offset. Because with VMT, a lot of times you can't reduce the vehicle miles traveled. It's about how do you offset the impacts that are generated from those miles that are traveled by the vehicle. So whether it's greenhouse gas emissions, whether there's something that came out of a health risk assessment, whether it's something other in the air quality, or whether it's some impact to the road system, the transportation network, any number of things like that. But VMT doesn't necessarily spit out something measurable like a level of service. We have a more concrete idea. Well, if we're at level of service E, but we need to get to C, here's what we need to do. And that equates to, turn signals, turn pockets, extra lanes, medians, whatever. But with VMT, it's not as cut and dry.
Do you know if they were applying these fees only on residential, or were they doing it on commercial and retail as well?
So I don't know that. The focus of the conversation today was specific to housing, because I think that's what the state is worried about impacting. But they didn't mention a few cities, and I'd have to look back at my notes, but I can go back and look through and reach out and see what those cities are doing and how they're coming up with those measures.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you help me out with the vehicle, the VMT, what that really is? I'm assuming that it's, if you build a house over here, then if somebody lives there, they're going to put so many miles, and that's going to affect the environment based on it. Is that the right thought process?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
So the idea of VMT was to look at how many vehicle miles a person or a household would have to travel as a result of that project. that negatively impacts cities like us where we have a workforce that's 80 or 90% commuting. And so, someone builds a house or hundreds or 200 houses. You look at who would occupy those houses and, on average, where would those people go? So they're driving 30 miles to work one way, 30 miles back, or 50 miles one way, 50 miles back. And so those vehicle miles traveled equate into environmental impacts, essentially with emissions and wear and tear on vehicles and roads and all those things. And so the idea was to try and encourage cities to build houses where the jobs are, to reduce, right? Or to build houses where transportation hubs or centers or high quality transit exists, right? So that people can maybe use mass transit, that's sort of the state's thing. And so anyway, but again, cities like us out in the Inland Empire and especially further out east like we are, we do not have what the state considers high quality transit. We don't have a lot of mass transit in general. We don't have easy access to rail, and we don't have huge job centers yet. So cities like ours are negatively impacted by VMT analysis, and cities that didn't retain LOS ability are further impacted.
And then last question, I'll try to keep it quick, is where do they collect this data from? Is it the census records?
So it's a whole plethora of data. So there are a lot of companies that use like the American Community Survey. It is census data. It's data that's reported from other projects and pulled from other areas. The whole modeling system and network is done even from, as close or as small scale as a city, all the way out to the SCAG region and at the state. So there's tons of different models and different data collection options that are all aggregated, and depending on the project and the location, the data is pulled for those purposes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have. You can move on. I know.
Okay.
I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. A couple quick updates. So I wanted to let you know that the earmark request window has opened. And so we have submitted 2 requests to Senator Feinstein's office. We have a $15 million request in for the recycled water basins, and we have an $18.5 million request in for Potrero. So the recycled water basins, we've submitted the whole $15 million into Senator Feinstein's office. We're working with Congressman Ruiz's office to determine an amount that they could support. I don't think they were too keen on supporting the whole amount, but we're going to make an ask of them as well. And then for Potrero, we did request that last year, I think, through through Congressman Ruiz's office. And the committee itself, even though the congressman supported it, the committee did not choose to take up that project. But we are submitting again this year through both the congressman's office and the senator's office in hopes that someone will carry that project for us this year. And I will keep you updated on what comes of that.
And Mayor, if I may?
Sure, go ahead.
And for public clarification, the reason we're doing Potrero and not Highland Springs or Pennsylvania is because this one is closer to design and
Yes, this one we are nearing completion of the changes with that we've made with Caltrans to make it more feasible and more cost efficient, I believe, and still meet the needs of what needs to be done out there as far as getting all 4 ramps in. And so this one is ready. I think the Highland Springs is being handled through RCTC, and it's a project that's multi-jurisdictional.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Ms. Martinez.
And
Sure.
Chief has
We'll
an
hear from
update
the
for you
chief.
guys too.
You got 3 minutes, Chief, so.
You got all the minutes.
3 minutes is plenty.
All right.
Just want to give you a quick update on
I'm kidding about the 3 minutes.
14 bills, but I'm going to go quick.
Okay.
It's not all of them, but been a lot of action since I presented 2 weeks ago. And some of it's good and some of it's not so good. But there was a bill that I talked about, AB 216, which would allow peace officers to carry our, when we're on duty in uniform, carry our firearms in public places, public establishments, open to the public. That died in committee.
That was to allow that to
Yeah,
happen?
so
Okay.
you've seen where people feel threatened by the police.
Right.
If they've asked the police officers to leave. That has not happened in this community because we have a great community, but it's happened. So we had an assembly member that wanted to champion a bill. It died. That's a low, but a really good high is the zero bell is dead. So that was going to make it so you couldn't set bail except for serious violent felonies. So that bill's dead. The AB 1224, I'm sorry, that was AB 329, the zero bail, if you're tracking. AB 1224, the sentencing, the special circumstances, which would have allowed a judge to strike a special circumstance, that's dead. Unfortunately, AB 1351, which would have allowed an enhancement on the weight of how much fentanyl a person is carrying, that died. AB 1603, which was another Prop 47 fix, which would have redefined the threshold of petty theft from $950 back down to $400, which it was prior to Prop 47. That died. Some positive AB 2246, it's another fentanyl bill to classify fentanyl as a Schedule 1. That allows there to be greater enhancements. That's still in committee. A lot of fentanyl bills, because SB 75, which is another fentanyl bill.
What was that again, sir?
SB 75. I don't think we're going to need it because the previous one, AB 2246, is in committee. But SB 75, the fentanyl bill, would have left fentanyl in Schedule 2, but gave it the same penalties as if it was in 1. So, this is where that whole gut and amend and those things are happening. So it's fine. SB 82, petty theft. This is the one I talked about, and I gave you the Home Depot example with the petty theft, but they were used a taser, which elevated it to a robbery, and it would have prohibited us from charging petty thefts as robberies or burglaries. That's dead. SB 210, that's the automated license plate reader information. Currently, we're allowed to keep it for 60 days. We do solve a lot of crimes. We just solved a robbery today, as a matter of fact, and we caught them in Hemet. We would have had to purge all the information within 24 hours. That bill's dead, so we retain the 60 days. SB 522, this is the one we were hoping was going to allow these swatting hoaxes that bring a very large police presence. That would have made it a clear crime with certain penalties. That died in committee, so that will not proceed. SB 735, the vehicle speed in school zones, which would have allowed us to use the photo imaging devices in school zones, that died. And so let me talk 3 more. SB 1000 is probably one of the ones we're watching the closest. This is the Encryption Bill, which we've spent large sums of money for interoperability, but also encryption. This would require us to either do away with encryption, or if we kept encryption, give anybody that wants access to our police radio channels to have it. And certainly then we would have to retrain the police department and our dispatchers, all of our staff, that certain information just could not be broadcast over the radio anymore. But that's just the first. They always creep in, and then what other data are they going to want into our CAD RMS server? So very concerning. We're watching this. It's still alive. It's in committee, and it's going to move to one of the top priorities for Cal Chiefs. We had a conference call with our lobbyist yesterday about this. An interesting one, SB 1389. This is the one that would prohibit low-level traffic stops. So this got referred back to the Traffic Committee because what they are learning is that the California Highway Patrol is funded through different means, but one of them, probably the biggest, is our registration tabs. Well, expired registration is a low-level offense, so if you can no longer stop and cite for it, who would register their car? Therefore, the CHP would no longer be funded. So don't think this is going to go much longer on this one. And then finally, SB 1464. I know this one was very concerning to all of us. This was going to require law enforcement to enforce public health orders, or risk losing our funding. It's still alive, but currently it's stuck. They do not have enough votes to advance it. And so they've already had 2 amendments, the authors have. So we're watching it. Our lobbyist feels like this one is not, we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, but we don't think they're going to get the votes to get it out of committee. With that, this was not all of the ones I presented 2 weeks ago, but these were ones that had some solid updates, but I can answer any questions you may have.
Chief, I have a real quick question. Do you have a sense of whether the bills that are making fentanyl a more higher priority for law enforcement are going down or being approved? I mean, are we headed in the right direction on the fentanyl bills?
We still have the one. It would be great to get fentanyl into a Schedule 1 felony.
But the other ones that went down, were they going to make it were they going to help the fentanyl problem?
The AB 1351 would have. That was the one that, depending on the amount, the weight, we could have had enhancements, but that died. That would have helped. But getting into Schedule 1 does change the priority of Congress. It changes the priority of funding and the DEA and all those involved.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Chief? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the city treasurer report.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Genetti is not able to join us this evening, so asked me to give the report. But what we've done is in items 3, 14, and 15, we have covered what was discussed in our Finance and Audit Committee meeting on the 1st of April. And then just one other thing to add is the Finance Department is now fully staffed. So that is the report.
Thank you. City clerk report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I wanted to give you a progress report on a couple of major projects that Nicole is heading up for our office. First, we are moving Laserfiche data from an old server to a cloud-based system for overall stability and more reliable access to electronic records. This is 25% completed. It should be completed by the end of May. A much larger project is a complete indexing of all records within the city clerk's office and implementation of a new filing system to be categorized in a user-friendly structure and format. That is 30% done at the moment, but it is not going to be completed until early next year. But she's working hard on it. Lastly, the municipal election in 2022 will have 5 seats up for election, 3 council members, treasurer, and city clerk. Nomination period opens on July 18th. And finally, the public records request for the month of March, 55 requests were submitted and completed. Total staff time allocated 16.25 hours. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. We'll move on to the city attorney report.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Okay, interim city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to point to your agenda packet. There are the department project updates, and the format of those were revised at, I believe, council's direction to make them more user-friendly. And so Gantt charts are provided for the majority of the departments. It is a work in progress. I do like the concept. I'm a visual person, and I like to see on a chart where we are with some of these really key projects throughout the city. So I welcome any comments. We will make them as user-friendly as we can. I want to remind you that you have scheduled a budget workshop for next Wednesday, April 27th, and that will be here in this room. Also on that day is the Three Rings Ranch Playground Community Input Event, and that will happen, I believe, at 2 o'clock in the park. We do invite all public to that. That playground has not been redone in 25 years, and so I'm pretty excited about this project. And we will contact the elementary school, which is right across the street, and make sure that the employees and the parents, we did send it out through social media. Three Rings Ranch has its own Facebook group, so we're hoping to get a lot of input from the community there in Three Rings Ranch. We expect to bring to you the fire station contract award on June 7th. The bids were due yesterday. We received 10 bids. They were all relatively close in pricing, which makes for a very good bid. And then finally, on May 3rd, the City Council meeting of May 3rd, I have asked our consultant engineer to bring an update to you all and to the public on the wastewater treatment plant and where we're at with recycled water, and kind of lay out a timeline for everybody to hear and to ask questions. And with that, and I did want to reiterate before we get to future agenda items, we will bring that report back that Mr. Berg requested under open communications about Weaver's Mortuary.
Okay, the budget workshop, what time does that start?
5 o'clock.
Are you guys all good with 5 o'clock?
10 a.m. be good, but
Okay.
I'll take 5.
I may be a little bit late. I was seeing if maybe someone might want to move it to 5:30, but can we do 5:30?
Is it posted? No.
We haven't posted the agenda yet, but
You guys good with 5:30? Okay, thank you. Future agenda items. Do we have any future agenda items? Okay, at this time, Mr. Lar, would you like a 5-minute break before we go to
No,
council?
I'm good, Mayor, but thank you for asking. I appreciate the thought.
We'll let you start with the council reports.
All right. Attended the WRCOG Finance, Executive Finance Committee meeting. The current director, the new director, Kurt, is going through and revising the budget format. And he's going to be providing more detail than had previously been provided, which I'm looking forward to seeing. So he's going to be working on that as we go forward, and he works through that. I just wanted to say a special thanks to the Easter Bunny I saw that was making rounds throughout the city, and also thank Ms. Heather Harwood, Ashley Starr, and Aileen Rodriguez for their efforts in supporting the Easter Bunny so that that bunny could make the rounds as quickly as it did. So that's all I have, Mayor. Can we take a break now?
Sure. Okay, we'll go to Mr. Santos.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Last week, I attended the Morongo Annual Community Outreach Award, and this is the first time that they did this. And the recipient on that is the Carl's Kitchen, Vincent and Kathy. And I really impressed the way they presented the award on this. And I would like to thank, the Morongo chairman, Charles Martin, on that, putting that together. They did a pretty good job. And also, I attended the Vine Mobility Hub. It took them, almost 18 years to put this station. I call it a station. I mean, the bus stations and everything. And, attended the groundbreaking ceremony in there. And they did pretty good. I mean, and I'd like to congratulate, the whole staff in there, and especially, Christine Warsitsky, and she's doing an excellent job in that. And I would like to also to say on here, I'd like to congratulate our interim city manager here, and I'm glad that you're on board and everything. and seeing you in here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Finn?
Yes, thank you. On April 7th, I attended the Transportation Now Committee meeting. We had a presentation by Mr. Parton in reference to an update to an update on the California State Rail Plan. He'd mentioned that it's been in the planning stage since 1991. The Tier 1 EIR study has been completed, and you can find some more information on that at rctc.org/CV-rail. And then he talked about Tier 2 will identify the best potential rail stops, especially in the San Gorgonio Pass area, and pose the question to the group is how can local transit plan and prepare to connect and make best use of that rail service. So it was enlightening to see that and getting everybody thinking ahead. And we do have a future agenda topic on that. It will be a presentation by Mr. Mickey Valdivia on the future I-10 bypass project. And so that's my report for the evening.
No presentation on the I-10 corridor from Mr. Valdivia?
Well, that's going to be our next agenda item on that, for that committee meeting.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A couple of things from March, since I was absent at the last meeting. So I attended the Student of the Month breakfast with Ms. Mendoza, and that was a very interesting and I'm really thankful I went, listening to all the students' stories. So I'm glad I attended that. The Vietnam Veterans Ceremony at Noble Creek Park, I attended that with Mayor White. We went to the Banning Chamber of Commerce installation of officers at Morongo. And our RCA meeting for April, we talked about purchasing of tax on defaulted property. We had a big conversation on land donation for fee credits outside of the MSHCP area. So that's a conversation that's ongoing. And we started a short conversation on prepayment policy, but that wasn't agendized, so we couldn't go into too deep discussion on that. That'll probably come back at our next meeting. And unfortunately, no species of the month yet. I know, that's all you care about.
It's 2 months in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
We'll
Guess
give you
they're-
2 species next time. How about that?
I guess they're all extinct.
And that's all. Thank you, Mayor. And welcome, Ms. Gibbs.
And I have nothing to report, so we'll go ahead and adjourn at 7:54.
Wow.
Second.